Hey everyone, and welcome back. I am continuing on my Apothecary build journey. All of the glue that I put in last time is all dried and set, and I am ready to continue my work on getting the case built so that at some point in time I will be able to add the decorations of all the little bottles and pockets and packets and, well, not pockets, but all the bottles and packets and what have you. So just to fill in the excess gaps and at least get it a bit smoother in here, I am just going to use some of the texture paste that I had mixed up from all the old containers of texture paste that I used when I did the stenciling. It does dry very solid. It has a pretty firm texture on all the texture outside, so it should work in here. And that's just going to allow for me to fill in around and smooth out some of those creases and across the tops of the screws inside this lid. In addition to smoothing out the inside of the lid, I am also going to smooth out where I had to cut into this bottom flap to get that hinge in there and fill in the crack on there, just to make sure that that is also going to be as smooth as possible and I won't have any weird divots where that hinge is attached. Now, to try to figure out more of my hardware options, more E6000 E6000 more adding E6000 to things. So I'm gonna try to determine two things now. The centering it, I already marked out yesterday. It is the attaching it at the right distance out for the latch to catch and whatnot. Of course it moved when I had to find my pencil. I just marked where the two screws would be going, which is unfortunately right on one of those Roman numerals, because of course it is. I will get it on here somehow. It might take a little bit of finagling apparently with that Roman numeral, which is in the most inconvenient spot now. But maybe I can. Oh. There we go. All those fails, just cut. That actually works out because that Roman numeral now is lined up with the edge of my latch. My latch is lined up there. All right, time for some E6000. Now those can just set up at least well enough to hold them in place. I will add screws, but the screws aren't very big, and I figure if I have the E6000 holding them there, a lot less likely to slip around on me. I don't think there's nothing I can really do well, nothing more I can really do on the base right now. But maybe can work on the doors a little bit. Since I know that these corners are going to line up more or less, I'll use those as my how far across do I want to go points. So the top of the doors, which I'm making sure I'm keeping up straight, at least I have stencils on the side that had numbers. So as long as I can read the numbers, as long as those numbers aren't upside down, I'm at the top. I'm going to add the hook bracket, the whole thingy doodad. I am going to have to work on my flap. I will put this on and kind of hope for the best. Hope for the best. I didn't want to do my fabric until I could kind of do it all together, but I can't really do a lot more with my hinges on my lid until I can get this straightened out and see how it's going to fit. And that's kind of a one-stop shop process there. I'd hate to attach the velvet and have it still want to buckle. So I'm really, really hoping to get that buckle worked out. So I'm just going to get a little bit wet. So I'm hoping it won't take much to unwarp it. And just while it cools, I'm going to weigh it down. That should hopefully solve my problem, or at least mostly solve my problem. I have done, basically what I said. I just added little screws into my pieces. I have both of the latch parts on my doors, like so. And I will be mucking up those screw heads at some point in time. I had already figured I'd have to, because, well, they really, really stand out now. And I have added the screws to my latch hinge system here because I wanted to kind of play around and work out exactly this, how this worked, or how this all fit together. Before I added the final screws, I added the two latches onto my bottom panel that go onto the bottom of the doors, but I saved the top to kind of go over just what I did for that, basically, which it really, really wasn't much of a challenge or anything. I will show you on the lid here. Oh, and I did, even though this is going to get covered, I added a couple screws through here just to help make sure that it had a little bit of extra staying power in there. I do have the marks already on there because when I had the box all together, I figured I would just add them. But let me get the correct door. All I did is get my door lined up, and now it was standing when I did it, so I was able to make sure that everything was lined up proper at the time. But I haven't set that camera up. I'm gonna go set that camera up. I can't do it like this. Let me switch views for you real quick here. Okay, so I think this will be easier to talk about. All I did is sort of mock put it together, get the latches closed up, get my edges lined up, set that like that, and the same on this side. That even though, this one's a little harder because the latch does hang upside down at the moment. I will be gluing everything together eventually. When everything is being put together, those latches will be permanently rusted shut. And by rusted, I mean some very heavy glue and rust paste, but we'll get there. We will get there, right? Okay. So the bottom was easy enough because I could just hang my hooks or the latches onto the little knobby thingies, and then I just lined it up and made sure that they were about the same hanging down. These things I can't find. These hooks, or these latches, they are not a perfect circle here. There's a little bit of wiggle room. They're a little bit more oval. So it gave me just a hair of being able to slide down here to make them even across the tops of them right there. For the top, which I will have to move that around real quick like for you. Let me just, there we go. There is unfortunately a window over there that is sending in a lot of glare, but it doesn't, I don't have any blinds to go over it. Well, I mean, technically the blinds are there. It's just that I have all that stuff hanging in the way. All right, if I don't bump it, we should be good for at least long enough for me to explain on the top. So for the top, I, put my box together like so, lined everything up, set it down, and these lines line up with the center on the bottom parts there. So for these, I'm just going to have to kind of hold them in place. And try to make some marks where they will go, or at least a mark like that. And hopefully this will be about the same. So I can line them up on those lines like that. And I will again use E6000 as a little bit of extra support. But since I already have the screws and everything out, I'll probably just screw it in right now. Maybe. But that's all there really was to it. Figuring out how to line things up. And I need to get all these latches on my lid so that I can add my back hinges here for my inside door. And there's that. Now, while digging through things, I did happen to come across this rather large supply of corner protecty thingy doodads and their little bag of nails. What I was thinking, because obviously I don't have near enough complications here, is I could add them to here in one area. They are just like the same width. Their lips cover this just perfectly. It was almost meant to be. So I could add some corner protective thingies in a few spots. Got some here. I have on those doors. I can put them at the door bottoms and the four corners of my lid. I'm going to start with the lid and then see, they're not super thick. There's already some gaps and a little bit of extra space just from when the box was cut and the sanding. So yeah, I'm going to add them to the lid. It will also add a little bit of extra support to those joints on here. And I will just glue them on for right now, at least, like I have been. Even though it doesn't really matter for the finishing of the lid on if these went on before or after. I'm going to do them now just so that I don't accidentally get glue on my velvet and the panels and what have you. After these are set up and I can take the clips off and add the decorative little nails to them, I will check and see how things fit together over here. See how much space is or isn't going to be left. You know, that sort of thing. I have a couple of things in mind. Like I will also be at some point in time, I will add these corners definitely to this bottom. I do want to add them to the front and the back, but I'm going to have to work out, you know, they will need to be modified for my door. Since this is really very close to being at least a completed lid or a marginally completed lid, what I do need to do is work out that flap. If I'm going to do that flap, I might as well finish the whole lid and the velvet with it and put it all someplace to protect it some. Okay, so where I left off on this, I'm pretty sure that part of this bow might actually be relatively permanent without, you know, a lot more work. I got a lot of it out. I think it had been sitting in the box at an odd angle. It wasn't in the slot, so it got bowed in there. But I'm not overly concerned about it. I will be adding moisture. I was going to use double-sided tape originally, but since there's still a bow in there, I might as well add extra moisture and try to get that straightened out some. So it'll be a combination of Fabri-Tac and maybe some double-sided tape just to help hold things in place. Since my back edge isn't going to be covered anyhow, I just popped a couple clips off so that I could line up my flap hinges hanging off the back in line with the lid hinges. So I just made some marks to aim between so they would more or less line up with these hinges. So I will put them on here before I wrap it with velvet, but I want to pretty up this edge a little bit. It's not going to be velvet wrap, but I don't want it just showing either. So I will use some foundry wax on it. Semi-prettied up. It doesn't have to be perfect because, well, I'm pretty sure that's unattainable. You know what I mean, sort of like how I can't say that word. It can't be done. But also because even if I was trying to make this perfect, it would have to be imperfect so it looked old. So I actually kind of need to remark my marks. I can see them a little bit. And they do have itty-bitty little baby screws with them. I don't know how well those little itty-bitty baby screws will necessarily go in, but they're not very thick, and I could probably actually trim if it pokes through. Since I'm on a mission to try to put the lid together, I do have to kind of nip down a little bit here. I don't think it's going to be a big deal, though, actually. And don't worry, everybody. I have glasses on, so I don't have things flying into my eyeballs. I assure you, even if I was like, safety schmafety. I wear contacts, so getting things in my eyes is even more uncomfortable and unpleasant. Anybody else wear contacts? You know what I mean? A little speck of dust and you're pretty sure that the whole of the dirt that used to fill the Grand Canyon just went in your eye. Why do you wear contacts? I hate glasses more. And now I am stuck with reading glasses. They're not flush with the surface because those don't cut flush with the surface, but they are down enough that I think the fabric will actually cover them up. Now would be a very good time for me to be able to find my rotary cutter to straighten out the edges. Maybe I'll go try to do that real quick. Maybe I'll go try to find it real quick. So, even though that blade needs to be replaced, it's a little dull. I did manage at least to get that straightened out some. Maybe I will try to aim this way. One end actually, or one part of this, I should say, it still has the faint imprint of its original, of the edge where it was originally wrapped around. So I think I'm going to just try to use that and then aim for finishing an end and finishing the front. And I'm going to do it in baby steps. Baby steps. I just want the double-sided tape to help hold the fabric in place while I'm waiting for it to dry. Now, fortunately, Fabri-Tac, it does not have an exceptionally long dry time, so I should be able to check it shortly. I just wanted to wrap one side. I do have a little bit more I can wrap going the other direction. We'll see how that works out. I wanted a little extra hold where it's going over the hinges and screws and on the corners, so we'll also see how that works out. It's been a few minutes, so let us see how it's coming along, or how it's holding. Well, I hope. Well enough, I hope. I do have a lot of glue on there because, of course I do. I have a thing with glue. If you haven't seen any of my other videos, I have a thing with glue. Like, I'm pretty sure that no amount is sufficient. That side is not as pretty as I'd hoped. I may have to add some more decoration, just, you know, for the sake of decoration. Wasn't thinking about that. I wish I hadn't cut this off. I had cut this off. If I hadn't cut this off, it would be fine. Maybe I can put it back on. In a manner of speaking. That's why I should never cut things first, I'm telling you. I always think I'm making it easier, and it generally turns out I am not. Okay, so I know it's not even, and I don't want to try to trim it right yet. But I'm going to put a thin line of glue around this edge, or on this edge. So I can finish wrapping. I pushed the clips down against the edge just to help hold that around the curve, and they're probably going to stay there forever. I am definitely not going to be taking these off too soon. Not at all. And since I'm in the area with glue, I might as well fix my boo-boo here. I do not want to risk taking those off too soon, so I will be letting those dry a lot. a lot more than is generally needed for Fabri-Tac, actually. Okay, so my glue dried very well, in fact, to the point where it doesn't fit. I mean, like, it is so weird, like I can drop it in, but lining it up is just so not working. And I think it's more than just the hinge up front. It is so weird. Anyhow, I'm going to solve that problem because now I'm just going to cut it all together with some very kind of heavy duty snippy thingies here. First, I am going to make sure I have a proper line to follow. I'm going to use my back edge first and get things squared up. So I know that that line is square to the back. And then we're going to see just how well I can do this. What are you thinking? I may or may not know what I'm doing. And you are probably right. Theoretically, I will finish the lid. So, Fabri-Tac dry, edges mostly smooth. I will be brushing on some of this. Maybe brushing on. Maybe. Oops, that's the statue, not the gilded. Oh well. You know what? Whatever wax is on is on. Right? Maybe I'll put both on. Maybe I'll just rub it on with my finger. Easier to control than a brush. Definitely. Definitely. Little bit of everything. Little bit of everything going on here now. Alrighty then. Now we have our redone edge. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Now what remains is deciding if I want to attach my latches top on the edge or if I want to attach them inside to also become covered with inside velvet. If I put them on the top edge, I think they would fit just a touch better with that front. Yep, definitely. There we go. Again, I will be E6000ing underneath. The latches, the reason why I wanted to do the hinges first, because I absolutely wanted to make sure that my latch was in the absolute correct spot. So I just put a couple little marks in there through the screw holes just to line up with. Again, I will be adding E6000 but I need to keep it at the ends because this whole centerpiece needs to remain turnable. So at least there's that. These, they have little nail holes. And I'll probably try to figure out if I can actually manage that in just a minute, but you know, at least I have my door together. I do, however, unfortunately, need to do a little bit of trimming. Barely anything coming out, but still there is. But I have a plan for that I just now came up with. Glossy accents. It's thick. You can bead it up. It stays dimensional. So I'm going to put it on over these. Make it some little Brad looking doodads over here. This side has an air bubble, a single air bubble. It won't pop. May have to heat it out of there. Oh, there we go. I got it. Gonna just try to make them as even as possible. Okay. Let those finish drying. That's done. I'm going to brush out the lid and then get the lids pieces out, the velvet pieces for the lid out. Now I can see this one originally was the one put in first because you can see how it has mitered corners so that it could fold up, and then the little end pieces were placed over. So I'm going to redo the miters. I'm going to start one section at a time, and I'm going to get the very, very top glued down first. Make sure that it is going to stay put. That way, also, if I have to adjust anything, I only have one part attached at the moment. Let that sit a minute or two. So while that glue dries, I will just trim off any of my backing that shows any little edges. I never fine trimmed them up. I just put them in a bag to keep them clean, and figured, you know, eventually I'd have to trim them. So here we are. That's dry. I am just going to slowly work the rest of my fabric in. Probably one little bend at a time. Try to keep it as smooth as possible. And once that is all in place, then I will come back in and be able to add the two end pieces, however they get in there. And then I will attempt to trim these down. Maybe I'll fold the tops in a little bit like that to give it a cleanish edge. I'll see what I have to work with once I get it firmly attached in the lid. All right, so all I have left is just tapping in the rest of the nails, which I will do, and adding some, where to go? Obviously, we're coming in with some wax, gilded wax for my little fake Brad looking things. Here. I think I'll paint them on. At least I have a little bit more control, considering it wanted to just sort of come flying out at me there. So now that I have more or less completed a piece of this entire cabinet, I'm gonna end this video on a high note of the lid being complete. Nothing to see really after this. I will just finish putting the nails into these corners, one on this side and one on this side for each one. So I will do that, and then I will very carefully trim my fabric even to the edge of the lid, except maybe a little bit lower around this hinge, just so that it goes underneath the hingey part. I am just going to wait to make sure that that Fabri-Tac is completely dry so it doesn't slip on me. And that will be the end, at least for now, until I come back and maybe add some distressing or aging to the corners when I do more of that on the rest of the box. So once my nails are in and my glue is dried and it is trimmed, I will just set my lid off someplace safe, and I will come back in the next video with more work on the box, working on some shelves in the doors, and I don't know, 1 or 2 shelves in the base, haven't decided yet. All right, so thanks for watching me today and coming along in my apothecary making journey. I will see you again soon in the next video.